Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is rainy, miserable. We need the rain, and everybody knows I've been choking, hacking, coughing for weeks, and all I can do is apologize. I'm a Georgia girl, and it's spring. That's all I can say. Speaking of Georgia girls, we're going to show you some photos. One we did last night, and it's a video. And guys, I know it's not deer season, but if you were out on the road I was on last night and you saw 12 deer just out here in the pasture, just waiting to be shot and put in your freezer, it was so hard to leave there without a deer on the hood of my car. So it was really tough. But we're going to show you that video. We're going to show you some pictures of some beautiful flowers blooming in my yard. They were put there many years ago by the folks who own this house for tons of years. And I said, it's so cool to look back at the past. It's so cool to look back at, you know, this beautiful bush that I get to enjoy every single spring. A family planted it about 40 years ago. And it's grown and grown and grown. And today we're going to talk about something that was planted here in Gilmer County lots more than 40 years ago. Lots more than 40 years ago. Longer than I am old, and we know I'm older than dirt, so it's a long time ago, but we're going to talk about that. So, Trace, can we pull up these photos and show them the deer? And guys, this is like 12 deer ready to take down, but it is not deer season, so, but I'll show you where they are, and I'll tell you the address. So, 12 deer. This was the prettiest evening sunset. And we're just kind of looking at the sunset, and all of a sudden we look out in the field and we see these 12 deer, and I'm like, get the gun, Bubba, get the gun. and we're like, is it worth going to prison for? No, but gosh, look at all those deer. It was so cool. And it was like, maybe 8 o'clock last night, just absolutely beautiful. Beautiful, and what a blessing. You know, Gilmer County is full of good stuff, and some of the things that I've noticed that are happening lately, a lot of folks are moving here from far off, as my granny would say. You ain't from around here, are you? Nope, a lot of folks aren't from around here, but they have adjusted and they love this lifestyle that we are offered here. So today we're going to talk about a church that's been here a long time. And I don't think y'all can hear it, but right now we're having a blinding rainstorm, and it sounds like the roof is going to collapse on us. It's not going to, but we can hear it, and it kind of jars you a little bit. Maybe it won't rain for very long, although we do need the rain. The creeks and the rivers, and yes, the gardens need the rain, so we're not going to whine about the rain. We're going to just take it for what it is. We're going to talk about the things that, you know, when we look at life, what's important in life, your family, your God. You know, we can now say, hey, we can talk about religion. We can talk about our values. We can share that with folks. We don't all agree on everything. Lord knows we don't agree on all our politics, but we are finding that people are coming to Georgia because they love our lifestyle. They love the fact that we are conservatives. They love the fact that we believe in working hard. They love the fact that we believe in building strong communities. Gilmer County is a very strong community, and it started on the backs of folks who really didn't have much to give, but they gave all they had. And that's what the old churches were founded on. My family is part of Mount Vernon Baptist Church over in Dawson County. Long history, the 1800s. And as I visit that cemetery, I think about those people. They walked to church, many of them walked to church, or they rode in a wagon, but they always went to church. And that's something we're seeing happen again in America. We're filling the churches up. I think there's a reason. I think we have come to believe that there is one way and we better get right. And so we're going to share a little bit of that today. Ladies, would you introduce yourselves?
I'm Renee Walker. I'm from Cartecay United Methodist Church.
And?
I'm Lucinda Teagarden. I'm from Cartecay United Methodist Church.
And you are truly one of these transplants who chose to be here.
Yes.
How did you land in Gilmer County?
My stepdaughter and her kids and her husband were in the military, and they traveled all over the place, and we visited them wherever they went. And they actually settled in Brazelton, and we wanted a lovely little mountain house, so with a lovely mountain view, and wanted to be close to the grandchildren. And we found a beautiful place that we are absolutely in love with, and we love the little area here. And I found this wonderful little old church that I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah, really
And
cool.
I'm very into the old
Yeah.
history of everything, so when I take that deep dive, I go deep.
You did it.
I did it. I go deep dive.
Yeah. Now, how many years have y'all been here?
4.
About 4 years. Okay. In 4 years, were there adjustments you had to make, or were you just welcomed into the community when you first got here?
No, it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Isn't
Everybody's
that awesome?
been wonderful. Everybody's been wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I have a guy who moved in our community. He's from Long Island. And when you talk to him, you know he is Long Island all the way. But he loves the lifestyle of Georgia. We offer something that not many people do. You know, it's just, hey, y'all come on down and we're going to be your friends.
Yeah.
And that's not that way everywhere.
Well, I know at our church, most people that come and they visit and then they come back because of our friendship and the love that we show everybody, and we pray for everybody. And so, you know, we get a lot of people from that.
Yeah. I got to ask y'all something, because at times we talk about church a lot. And as a kid, we went through this period of time that my mother had been a Baptist Sunday school teacher, and then she got out of the church. And when she did, I was at the age that I was going to church. I walked to different churches. Wherever we lived, I would walk to a church. And we happened to live near a Methodist. We're Baptist, but we live near a Methodist. So I walked to the Methodist church, and I went to the Methodist church. Do you still do the Methodist creed every day when you're in church?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We do have a ritual that we go by, but you're talking about going to other churches makes me think of in the 40s, Cartecay was the only Sunday school. And so a lot of the kids would go to, it didn't matter if you're Baptist or whatever, a lot of the children would go to Cartecay for Sunday school. And they called it a Sabbath school at that time. And we were going through some pictures, and I found a picture in 1948 of a group, and it has my mother and has my uncles, and I know a lot of the people that are in that picture.
Now, why did the other churches not have Sunday school?
I don't know.
I would think it was the teacher. You needed a teacher. You needed somebody that could teach. And it was the Methodist churches that had that.
Because I know a lot of the Baptist
education.
churches were around at that time, but and then they also offered, I think, something for the children to do. And one of the pictures, and I'm going to try to get with my last uncle that I have to see if he can remember where they went in that picture, because they apparently, you know, did trips or did something, you know, fun. But I don't know if the other churches just didn't, you know, concentrated on mainly church time, you know.
Well, I grew up in the city, and although our family belongs to Dawson County, Mount Vernon Baptist Church, very primitive, very rural Baptist church. I can remember growing up in the city, church was a little bit different. And we went to White Oak Hills Baptist Church, big, huge Baptist church with the big pillars, you know, and you walk in and it's almost like you're walking into sacred ground. It was sacred ground. And I went back years and years and years later, many years later, because I had to get my letter from that church and move it. It wasn't even White Oak Hills Baptist Church anymore. So many churches have changed, and so many churches have dissolved or gone away. And the idea that y'all have made it this long, I mean, y'all are older than I am. So, yeah, that's amazing.
Well, in probably the last 15 years, we have seen a decline in the North Georgia district of Methodist churches that are dying out. Low attendance, and which is sad. And we just had one locally that did that because there was not enough people. It's sad to see a church be closed down.
Yeah.
But one thing we did, and the district had been asking us to do, was to look at separating our cemetery, because there were so many churches dying out that they were left with the cemetery. and to take care of or to do something with. So we recently, last year, did all the paperwork and everything and separated our cemetery, so it's now a separate entity. I'm the chair of it, and it's called Cartecay Old Church and Cemetery Association. And we have recently posted signs around the cemetery.
And you have 2 cemeteries, right?
Yes. We have the original old one out Roy Road, and then we have the newer one in it's at the corner of 52 and Roy Road. And that property originally was given to us by Barnett Wilson in 1859, I believe. Yeah, 1859, that property. So that's where it majorly is. And then in 74 we built a new church just over 100 feet probably from the old one, and that's where we.
Did you have disruption in the church when you built a new building?
Oh yes,
because our church did at Mount Vernon.
Yes.
There was controversy, and but the thing I remember as the little city slicker leaving Atlanta and coming to Mount Vernon, I'd say, Granny, I gotta go to the bathroom. She said, they're out back. I said, what you mean they're out back? And it was outhouses. Yeah. And I can remember that like it was yesterday. And I can remember being a little 8-year-old girl and walking in there going, oh no, oh no.
Well, I mostly grew up here. My mother and father were born and raised and grew up in Gilmer County. And we went away, but I came back as a family, came back in the late 60s, and we started going there. And of course, that's where my mom had went to Sunday school, and so we started going there. And there was no bathrooms at that time.
Yeah.
And
I can remember they had I want to call it a wash pan, and a dipper at the front of the church. We didn't have running water in there either.
I don't remember us having that.
Yeah, we had it was a bucket. It was a metal bucket and a dipper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try that today. Just use that dipper. What? Are you kidding?
Got to sanitize it first.
Yeah.
But it was, and then I think it was, the church started having some problems because of how old it was, and so there was a need probably to build. Of course, I was young, but I remember helping clear the land that was given to us. Is the
old church still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it's preserved.
Yes, and we have restored the inside. We did have to eliminate the pews, and we had to redo the floor, and did a lot of things. We weren't able to preserve the whole inside walls and everything, but the pulpit wall is original. The pulpit is original. A lot of the stuff at the pulpit area is original.
Wow.
And we are on the National Historic Registry. That became 2001. And so it's we did have the pews stored, but a lot of them were rotting, and so we're hoping that her husband can get a picture. We have pictures of them.
We have pictures. I showed it to him.
Maybe he can replicate, and maybe a couple, just to have a
couple. Why would wood pews rot? Why would they?
Age. They're 190 years old.
I know, but antiques are forever though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they got to be maintained. This building wasn't heated all the time.
Yeah,
okay.
It was subject to whatever the weather.
So it went hot, it went cold, it went hot, it went cold.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I remember in the wintertime, I think it was an oil heater that we had back in the corner. I don't remember if we froze still, because it's a big, huge church with a high ceiling. And
have you ever been to the church up behind Amicalola Falls?
No.
Okay, it has no electricity in it. But it's been there forever, and I think Sanford Fountain's in-laws helped build that church, and he helped build it. And walking back in there is like walking back in time. And they have a little gas heater on the wall, but they don't have electricity. So it's a very unique experience.
You can see that, like when I've been to Cades Cove and I went into some of the churches there. No heat, so you can see things every year.
That's when you get you an ETC fan. We got ETC fans, y'all. For y'all that are having revival, we got ETC fans. We won't be seeing y'all sitting there fanning with ETC.
But it's a special church for me. I mean, a lot of my family's buried there, and a lot of the people in the cemetery I knew as growing up in the church. And
who's the pastor?
Juan I can't even say it. Quantatilla.
Okay.
And he came to us new last year, and he's been renewed for another year, and we really like him.
What are the differences in Methodist and Baptist? Because I'm going to tell y'all a quick story. I didn't realize that there's a little controversy sometimes with churches, because growing up like I did, I went to the Pentecostal, I went to the Baptist, went to the Methodist, went wherever we lived, I would walk to that church. And so I had a singing in Jasper one time at the Methodist church, but I'm a Baptist. But it was because the Methodist church held more people, and we had the inspirations coming in, and we needed a big venue. Right. And I asked one of my friends, I said, "You didn't come to the singing?" And she said, "You had it at the Methodist church." And I said, "What does that mean?" And she said, "We don't go to the Methodist church." And I thought, oh.
I don't look at it as a difference.
I thought it was strange to me, because God goes to all of them.
God goes to all
well,
of them.
God goes to all of them.
Well, someone posed that a simple question to me about it, and I said, I don't see any difference in us. I think we're all striving for the same place, and we're all believing God, and I said, I just don't. I mean, we have different ways of operating, and I think that's just basically where, we have certain discipline and a book that tells us how to do this and this and this, certain guidelines for things, but
you read the Bible and you preach the Bible.
Yeah, we have Sunday school.
Okay, if we read the Bible and we preach the Bible and we live the Bible, what's the difference in us?
Right.
What's the difference in
That's
us?
what I think.
My upbringing, and I have done, it was obviously up in New York, but I'm Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I went through the communion.
And my aunt was raised backward Baptist and became a Catholic.
Yeah,
so
the communion, the confirmation, all that. And I did what every normal person does. You drift away from your church, and then you decide to go back. And then I went back, and I was told to leave by the Catholic Church, because I was not married in a Catholic church. And I was like, I don't want to, I feel I'm thoroughly married, and God knows it, and it said, it's like, it's fine. And I went into a Methodist church, and they were very welcoming. They're like, all are welcomed at our table. And I was like, oh, I belong here. And both me and my husband go now to this Methodist church. And that's up in New York. I came down here. I was again looking for a church, and I went to a Methodist church, and it was so similar, the same. All are welcome at our table. So you are all welcome at a Methodist table. So there is.
I thought it was strange, and I guess because growing up in the city, I had friends of all different, and I grew up in a very affluent Jewish community, which was really weird, because most of my friends were Jewish, and on Jewish holidays I'm the only kid at school, because the Baptists went to school and the Jewish stayed home that day. And so we had like 3 people at school, but it was weird, because I just never thought about our differences in religion. I just, if you believe the Bible.
Yes.
All churches have issues. Things pop up and cause issues. Some people leave. But our church,
I've heard people get their feelings hurt for some of the craziest reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're like, seriously? I mean, I heard a lady get mad because a visitor came in and she walked in and said, "You're in my seat." Well, number one, it's a visitor, and you're just supposed to say welcome.
It's a guest.
You sit down in front of him or beside him or under him. And I'm like, and like when I belonged to Cool Springs Baptist Church for 25 years, and I had my seat, let me tell you, me and all the old grannies, all us blue-haired old grannies, we had our seats. And there was a time of change with music. And I talked to our music director, and I said, I know you're trying to get to that upbeat tempo and I guess the modern whatever, but we like the old hymns. And us old grannies are all sitting back here waiting on you to do a song we know. And they quit doing that, and they were doing all the different songs. And I kept saying, if you run the old grannies off, pretty soon there ain't gonna be nobody here writing checks every week, because the young kids are struggling and fighting. Right. And so you have to make everybody happy. That's part of making everybody happy, is providing the music and the message and something that reaches everybody. That's got to be tough.
It is. We're kind of in a rebuilding mode, but we have been getting a lot of new people coming in, that are joining, and it's good because there's been many times people thought we would die, and we're still here. And we celebrated 190 years last
crazy?
year,
and it's crazy.
Made it through COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big struggle.
That was
Sure
a struggle.
COVID was.
And you know it shouldn't have been, because you know what we should have done as Americans with freedom? We should have said, Fauci, just shut up. Just shut up. We don't want to shop. We don't want to hear your crap. We're not staying home from church. And I can remember First Baptist at Ball Ground did not recover for a long, long time, because once we went to that daytime, you get to sit at home in your pajamas and watch, people got a little bit into that. And so I work 7 days a week, and so when you get used to not being there, it's hard to go back. And it was tough. We should never have listened to that mess, but we did. And we panicked, and we got scared, and we buried our friends, and we couldn't even go to the funeral home.
Yeah.
I had to bury my mom without a wake.
Oh yeah.
Without a wake, without a funeral.
Yes.
It was heartbreaking.
Went through the same thing, and it was crazy because you're standing there saying, we are letting them do this to us. My best friend was forced to have the shot, and it shut his heart down. And he told his sister right before he died, I wish I'd never listened to my doctor. He was a devout Christian who traveled the world sharing the Word of God through video and taking missionaries to different fields. And then he left this world way too young, because of that. Because we didn't stand up. And maybe churches should be the beginning of us standing up for what we believe and sharing the message and saying, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us.
Yeah, it was a sad time.
Very sad.
And people were scared.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know.
There was a panic mode.
Yeah.
There was a panic mode. Yeah.
And then I know it started here in Gilmer really suddenly, and it was a revival at a church.
And hundreds of people got it.
And I knew of several people that died, you know, and it was just a crazy time. I even got it.
Yeah, I had it twice,
In 2020, I got that first round. And it came from where it started at that church, because I was interacting with somebody else. And it was just, and I was having to stay home with my mom for a month, live with her to take care of her. And she never got it. So
Isn't that crazy?
It was just.
My mom never got it either, and I was at home taking care of her, and they had me so scared that I wouldn't let anybody come see my mother. I wouldn't go anywhere. I was doing the wipe down the food thing when you get. My husband would do the shopping. I did the Instacart shopping. I was just so afraid, but no, nothing ever happened to her. Nothing ever happened to me, you know. But we were denied a funeral.
Yeah, we sadly let them instill fear in us. And
it was completely unnecessary.
And if we really believe the Bible, there's a time and a place. We know. He knows. He knows. You know. And so we fell into almost a dungeon of dread and drama, and we shouldn't.
I think it was already here. Even before it got announced, we got put.
I have a friend who died at 40, and actually two friends, and they were in their 40s, and they were having breathing issues and but nobody ever called it COVID.
No.
And then within 2 months, COVID was all over the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my mom had breathing issues, so I was so scared. So scared. And to think that the last year of her life, well, not even a year, less than a year, I had to isolate her.
Yeah.
You know, for her own benefit, which was
and for them to say 10 people can attend a funeral when you have the largest family in Cherokee County.
I couldn't even get one.
Isn't that crazy?
I couldn't even get one.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And then they were doing it up in New York, and I don't know because I wasn't down here then. You could get the shots if you wanted them. You could get them, but you had to check boxes. You had to set certain boxes, and I didn't check any of those boxes. I come down here, and if I walked into the drugstore and got one.
Well, I would never take a shot, never.
No.
And I
because of the fear.
I had a few doctors, who said, "Oh, you need." I said, "Don't ever ask me that question again." And I actually changed doctors. So as I just changed doctors again, because I don't want to hear that, and I don't want that shoved down my throat. If I want it shoved down my throat, I'll go get somebody.
I know a lot of people that didn't do it, but
I have one family member who did it, and now they're struggling with blood clots.
Oh.
So at
Yeah.
37 years old, struggling with blood clots.
And some of the side effects from the
Yeah, it's scary.
I suffer them on regular basis, so I was very scared. So I only did the one that's the one shot, you know. So.
Yeah.
Because the other
Wow.
one is like, oh, it's 2 shots. Now it's 3 shots. Now it's 4 shots. You
Yeah,
know, and I know
yeah.
people up in New York that have had like 7.
Yeah, no,
I'm just like-
no. And I think it all goes back to, what do you believe? I believe that God is here. He's in our presence every single day. And we'll see something just crazy and we'll realize there's no explanation for that but Him.
Right.
He's the only reason,
Right.
you know.
If I could, I'd like to, back in, when we did our 180th anniversary, we had a little story come up. Some people from North Carolina contacted me and wanted to give some history of their, I think it was their great-grandmother who attended Cartecay back in the it was the mid-1800s.
Wow.
And she was a little girl growing up in North Carolina, but her parents died young. And so she had 2 brothers. Her name was Melinda Minerva Black.
Okay.
And
Minerva was a name they used then, because I've seen several
Yeah.
cemeteries with that name on it.
yeah, but 2 of her father's brothers who lived here in Ellijay came to North Carolina to get her and brought her back to Ellijay. And she started being friends with a girl. And it says it was she was a prominent girl from here. It didn't give the name, and they were treating they had her short for Lindy. Melinda was her name, but they call her Lindy. And she met this girl who was a well-to-do family, and they were feeding her bread, some type of bread that she never had because her family was poor.
Wow.
And so this girl attended Cartecay, this well-to-do girl, and invited her to go to a revival at Cartecay. So Lindy went, and so the revival at the end, the preacher would ask, once you were saved, but at the end of the last night of the revival, the preacher would ask the people to come up and be baptized, and so she went and was baptized and in Cartecay. And actually some of her family is buried at Ebenezer Baptist Church,
Wow.
which is just out
Yep,
the road
right
from
through.
us.
Yep.
The Blacks, I think it's Mary and Jane Black. They're buried. I don't think there's any markers for them though, but they know they're there because they've, rotted or whatever they had has went away. But I just thought that was kind of cool. But they said this was the mustard seed that was planted in this girl, because she went eventually back to North Carolina, married a man, and they built a church.
Wow.
And started a church.
How cool
Because she
was
kept
that?
feeling the call that they needed to do something there, and they built a church.
And we were talking about your cemetery before we came on the air, and the old cemetery, new cemetery, all the graves in the new one are marked, but in the old one
They're
yeah.
There's some, but it's getting where some of it you can't read hardly.
Yeah.
But I know the earliest one we had was 1795.
Wow.
Well, that was let's see, that's
a
a birthday,
that's a birthday.
but 18.
40,
So I mean,
44,
so there had to be, probably earlier than 1834. With something was going on out
Well,
there.
I had asked y'all, were there Cherokee who attended your church? And there were Cherokee.
Well, there's writings, that say there was, and of course, I do know for a fact that at the back where you walked in, at the back of the church, there was a bench, and that was for the slaves. And we do have 5, I think, 5 slave graves. They're marked with a stone with slave on it, but there was no names. And I don't know if the Cherokee sat back there too, but during the Civil War, there was the story that there was a division, because we were known as Cartecay Methodist South. And there was a north, I guess, of something, but the men would come and spend the night at the church with their guns and protect the church, because they were afraid something would happen to it. And so there's a lot of rich history for the church.
And today, how many people attend your church?
Well, we have probably
normal.
Well, probably about 40 or 50. Sometimes, you know, it's less. It depends.
Right.
There's so much going on in people's lives anymore. You kind of don't know, but we're kind of in a rebuilding mode. But we're, you know, we had a thing happen a few years back, and I think people thought we would not make it, but we're still there, and we're still striving and getting people coming to the church.
And that's all it takes. Is just don't
Yeah.
give up. Don't give
Yep.
up. And that's
Yep.
something we all need to know. Now we're going to show some photos that y'all brought.
Okay.
And I want you to just kind of talk about them as they come up on the screen. So these photos started from what years?
I think the
now,
earliest
is that
one.
the new church?
No,
No.
That's
the
the
old
old
church.
church.
That's
Okay.
and that has the awning, so that's after late
That's an old
1960.
picture, yeah.
Okay.
That's in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's in the 60s. And the propane tank is on that side. And that's the front of it. And that's the awnings are not there, so that would be before the 60s.
Okay, explain to me the two doors.
The two doors were because men and women did not go in the same door. They segregated by sexes. Going into the church, they segregated by sexes while you were in the church as well. You sat in separate areas, and there was a divider down the
Husband and
center.
wife didn't even sit together?
Husband and wife did not sit together.
Wow,
No.
interesting.
No. So yeah.
Interesting.
And that has the plaque on it saying that that's the Sunday school, and that one's going to go to. Again, you can see the plaque on the side, the two
That
separate
looks a
doors.
lot like a church
That
that
one's a
we
little
saw in
later
Tennessee recently.
because that one has the lighting over it. That's the same one. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
And
when
that's
that
got a
church
lot of-
was built in what year?
1859.
59, yes.
Okay.
1859.
Okay.
Yeah, now that is a picture from the 1950s.
Uh-huh.
And I tried to take the exact same angle, but at the time, the road went straight across. And
Okay.
you were able to stand at a higher level. So when I went there, there's now a swale there, and I'm holding the camera up as high as I possibly could, and I could not get to the same angle. So,
But
yeah.
that's the original church.
That's the original
Okay.
church, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the original.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the first Mount Vernon did.
Has
yeah.
no steeple,
Yeah.
has no bell,
Uh-huh.
and
Interesting.
your services were you were led into a service by either they blowed a conch shell, they would drum a drum, or they would have a handbell.
Wow.
And that is the back view with the cemetery in part of it.
And that very last section on the very end is taken off now.
Yeah, those were classrooms for the Sabbath school and the Sunday schools. And yeah, as they were growing, they needed another room, so they added this other room on the end. But as part of the restoration to restore this building, they took that section off, that third one there,
It
that
had no
smaller one.
historical value.
Had
to
no
it.
historical value, and it wasn't exactly placed properly. So
And at that point in time, was there electricity and water in that church?
No water.
no water,
Still
no water.
Okay.
Still no
Okay.
water, no bathrooms.
There is
elec-
electricity,
There is
yeah.
electricity.
Okay.
There is heating. That's where they're starting to take that building off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we had to say goodbye to that little section.
Wow. Wow.
You can see the siding. It was painted. It initially was not a painted building. And this is a picture that is a different church.
love that.
This is not our church. We have studied this picture so many times, but it is a plan for a church. They would, when they decided they wanted this church, the Methodists would offer a catalog. From that catalog, you could pick your plans. So you had to decide what was your needs. Our needs were separate entrances because we separated by sexes. Our needs were no choir area. We did not have a choir. Singing was limited to the Psalms. There were the classrooms on the back. So there was the Sunday school because that started at the old church, the log cabin in 1851. And so yeah, this it's a fascinating picture because it does show this plan was
It looks
used.
like it, yeah.
Yeah, but the spacing between the doors is not right. The eaves on the building is not right, and then there's the window bent thing in the top that is not there. But
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
really cool photo. I really
Yeah, that
like
is
one.
really cool. And that looks like about the 1840s.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Mr. and Mrs. U.S. Worley celebrating their 50th anniversary. They were real patriarchs of our church. They were
I grew up with them.
Yeah.
you know,
Very
they
good
were married in the church. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in our church.
How sweet.
That is And they're buried at our church.
Yeah.
And they are buried with her family.
That is so cool.
That is the restoration after it was all complete.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can see that last third room
And
is
so what
gone.
is that building used for now?
It is available for weddings. If you
Okay.
want a wedding in a nice 190-year-old church,
Okay,
you can use
okay.
it. It is available. We've used it for Christmas festivals. We've used it for art shows. We've used it for craft shows.
That's awesome.
We also use it as a backup church sometimes, where when the power went out one time and it cut the power to the big church, we, in 45 minutes, a text message went out. We got to clean this old church. In 45 minutes, we had that church clean, and we were in there that Sunday. And it was amazing.
That is cool.
Because now we sing. Back then, we didn't sing. And when you start singing in that church, it is, oh my God, you feel God.
And the acoustics.
Oh, just
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
is no PA system,
Wow.
but you can hear.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah, that is
That
so cool.
is a bracket that the lanterns, when there was no electricity, you would have your oil lamps.
Right.
You would hang the oil lamps off one of those brackets. Those were, that was its power.
That is so cool.
Those are
That is
really
And with the separation of the church and now the COCCA, which is the new thing for the old church, you can, there's phone numbers on all the signs and that you can call if you're interested.
Who is that?
That is me in this dress.
I see that.
Yeah, that is me standing there.
It's kind of like Scarlett. Did you get your curtains down and make your dress?
I fell in love with this fabric. I thought it was beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And yeah, the opportunity came to do this tour, and I was like, "Can I do it?
Yeah, yeah.
Can I
that
do it
is
in
awesome.
costume?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Sure, fine."
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's where our sign for our, and there's the church school. Initially, it was called Sabbath School. Now it's referred to as Sunday School, but it's not always on Sunday. But there is some on Sundays. We
Now,
have,
do y'all have church every Sunday?
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We did
That is
back
the-
in when I was a young girl growing up, and when we did the first new building, Oscar Poole was our pastor, and
So you had a great piano player and a pastor. Yes.
and,
yes. How cool is that?
So that was cool to do that with him.
Yeah.
That is the front of the church as it exists today. And it has that cross and flame in there. And my husband made that.
Wow.
And I helped him. He's like, "We're gonna flip it over." So I go down there and I help him flip it
Oh, that's
over.
beautiful.
And it was installed by the men's group of the church.
That is awesome. There was a little controversy a few weeks ago about a cross that's in Jasper, and somebody was complaining, and when are they going to take that thing down? What is it there for? And I thought, what?
Really?
You
Oh,
know?
and then that cross is also lit up at night, and you should
Oh,
see the way
wow.
it shadows on the building. It's
Beautiful.
absolutely gorgeous.
Now, what's that?
This is a group from the Sunday school, and obviously they needed a little contrast, so they had somebody holding up a sheet behind them.
I see that.
But what's interesting
That's
about
like
this
Loretta
picture,
Lynn. Remember, she had the bedspread behind her,
Yeah.
and Doolittle took her promo picture.
What's interesting about this picture and why I liked it was it shows the communion rail that's going right in front of the entire altar. And nowadays that does not exist like that. We have an opening in the middle because we don't segregate by sexes anymore. And initially that was right across. There'd be a small opening because of women on one side, men on the other.
When did that change?
That's the picture of the same angle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can see where I'm lower,
Yeah.
and there's the Stanley gas station. Now
Yes,
that's
I
right.
know that gas station well. They know my
it's like-
credit card
It's not
well.
in the.
Yes.
It's not in the first one, but it's in that
Isn't
one.
that crazy?
Yep.
Yeah, that is so cool. That's a beautiful
And the
shot.
swale is there, so I tried my best.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that one there. So you can see, I can't get that high.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to bring a ladder.
That is so cool. So if people do want to have weddings there, that is really neat that they can do that in
Well,
a historical building.
Since we did the separation, I would advise people to call the church or call them. Well, if you're out there, the signs have my number and another person's number, and we could talk with you and discuss more things about possibly. We have in the past had weddings there. We had one in January, and it came the cold spell with it.
Of course.
And they were freezing to death, and of course they were able to use our fellowship hall for the reception.
Right.
And but we did put I can't remember the year, but we did put air and heat in it, but it's not very
efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Air might be, but the heating part in the middle of
It's
January
still a very high ceiling, so the heat rises.
And my idea to a bride who gets married in January, what were you thinking anyway? You know.
I was already got married in February.
Yeah.
That is the historical marker. That's that we are on the historical registry. So,
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that's why you had to keep it to the point of the preservation exactly
Yeah,
as it was.
in the historical thing, you can do what it needs to be done on the inside, you know, about restoring and but you cannot change the exterior.
Yeah.
We could take that one building off because it was nothing. It wasn't old enough to have any value, historical value, and so
that is the plaquette for the church itself, and that is where you'll see where it's Cartecay Methodist South.
Yeah.
And it lists the pastors, and it was then at the time Louis Ellington, and
Ellington was the first
pastor that we had. Yeah, and see, there's again that
Yeah.
communion rail is straight across the front. It does not exist like that today, and there's the pews, and you can see that divider. So the men would sit on one side, and the women would sit on another.
Wow, that is just strange to me. I never went to a church like that.
Yeah, that was.
So
well,
it had
this
to have
happened
changed the
years
50s.
ago.
Well, this
probably.
I think it changed before the 50s.
Yes.
Yeah, it was before the 50. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's again the left side.
Yeah.
And where the
Look how steep that is.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to
Yeah,
be a roofer on that church.
we are looking at that roof. That
Yes.
roof is a concern. We'll call
Well,
it a
we
concern.
have two concerns right now: the roof, and also the back. On this picture, you can see the back side, the pitch of the roof above the add-on. We're having some issues with paint and wood popping up off the building.
Wow.
So we are in a fundraising mode at this point, trying to get some funds.
So if somebody's watching us today and they need a tax write-off, they could make a
They could
check
help
out to the
us.
church.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you can see the church is not painted.
Yeah, that is so cool.
That is not painted.
What year do you think that was?
That was in the newspaper in 1958, but I believe the picture is older than that. So I'm.
And is that a gentleman standing there with
There
spit on
is
his
a
eye?
It is.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah,
who it
that's
is.
so cool.
I liked this picture because not only does it show the old church and show the cemetery, it shows the fellowship hall, and beyond that is the current church.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's like that is 190 years.
Preserving
right
the past
there.
and embracing the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That is where the pews were on this, because you walk in, there'd be some pews on the right and on the left, on your side of whatever, whether you're men or women. That shows the faux finishing that was done by Frank B. Hagel.
Wow.
And obviously the pews were there when he did the faux finishing, so
Yeah.
the original wood is
Yeah.
showing. We also still have some of that wood was preserved and is now on the back wall, and one of those markings are right in the church now.
That is cool. That is cool. Well, we're going to have to take a commercial break, and we're going to do that, and then we'll come back in a minute. But we also want to do an old song, because I think it's time to do an old song, and it's by your buddy, Mr. Ellijay. So we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Whether you're in the mood for chicken strips, a delicious burger, our classic banana split, or an upside-down thick blizzard treat, we've got you covered. Hot and fresh food every day, every time, and delicious DQ soft serve make the perfect pair at your favorite place. Not fast food, fan food fast. Your Blue Ridge, Ellijay, and Jasper Dairy Queens are your meet, eat, and treat headquarters.
Thank you for choosing DQ. How may I serve you?
Here's the deal. We gotta set ourselves up. See, retirement is the long game. We can't play about our future or our finances. Make moves, set up goals. Don't worry about a setback. Just save up, stack up to reach them. Let's put ourselves in the right position. Pre-game to greater things. This is Pretirement.
Welcome to our ETC Game of the Week. From McDaniel. That one is poked out in the out.
Oh, that one hits him in the head.
From Crisp.
3-2.
Good lick.
Y'all come by and see us anytime you can.
Whether you're swimming in the sea or splashing in the pool, making a masterpiece, or just making memories, writing a great American novel, or writing your term paper that's due tomorrow. Whatever you do in life, Farmers is here to protect it. For all your insurance needs, call Donald Curtis in Blue Ridge.
I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw that hearse come rolling, Lord, to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Well, I told that undertaker, please drive slow. For this lady that you're hauling, Lord, I hate to see her go. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better
Now, would y'all like to invite folks to come to visit your church?
Oh, yes. Anytime. On Sundays, 10:30. We have, well, let me back up. We have Sunday school at 9:30. At 10:30, we have service, 10:30 to 11:30. And we have...
do y'all do that so you can get out before the Baptists do? 'Cause let me tell you about Cool Springs Baptist Church. Never forget it. Preacher Billy Emmett had his watch laying here on the podium. And I said, why do you have your watch laying there? And he said, because that woman right back there told me before church that she put a meatloaf in, and it was coming out at 12:15, and I needed to hush at 12:05. And I was like, seriously? You know?
Yeah, if you're,
and I didn't know if he was kidding or not.
If you're looking for a church, we welcome you to come in and visit. And I know of many people that visited several churches, and there's several Methodist churches in the county. And it doesn't have to be Methodist. I just encourage everybody to be in church. And but if you'd like to visit, we'd welcome you.
That's cool.
Yep.
Now, do y'all have like a ladies group that gets together and has Bible study, or what's your normal church week?
We have several. We have the Women in Faith. We have a quilt ministry, which I am also a part of because, you know, I'm going to do the sewing thing. And I'm not a quilter. I'm an apparel sewer. But I am very welcomed in this group, and they are teaching me to be a quilter, which is fabulous.
I love that.
Yeah, so I'm learning all these little quilting tricks and techniques.
We have a men's group.
And the men's group, yes.
They're very active doing things
in the community as well as for the church.
Right. But I think we, and this was her out of the Heritage, actually the Methodist Church, the whole Methodist district, honors Heritage Month, and that's in May. And then she would come up with the idea to do the Heritage Day thing, which is May 10th. You want to elaborate some?
Yeah, May 10th, I'm going to be giving a tour of the church. It's going to be a guided tour. I'm going to be like this. We're going to do a little time travel. And I will explain, you know, the whole history of our church, how we got to where we are. I also want to talk about the people. You ever remember that little hand thing? This is the steeple, open the door and see all the people. I'm going to be explaining to some of the people that have made up this church. I'm going to be pointing them out as their importance to the church, also where they are buried, and some of their stories. So,
and you said the land was donated by a certain family.
And I will be pointing out, the land came from Barnett Wilson.
Oh yeah, for the original.
And I will be pointing out his headstone. He is buried in our church. There's so many that are so interesting, and I've had to pick and choose which ones I want to talk about. But yeah, it's for a $10 donation to support the ongoing restoration of this church. I'm going to be doing this guided tour. I did a practice run the other day, and it probably is going to take like an hour and a half. And there is a certain amount of mobility that's needed because we are going to be walking around in the cemetery, and I'll be talking about it. Plus, we're going into the old church. There's stairs to go into the church. There's going to be stairs to come out of the church. We have Chainsaw Jesus, is what we lovingly refer to him, as a chainsaw sculpture. We're going to go down and take a look at him. It's a little prayer point that you can come. Church doesn't have to be open. You can come there and you can park your car and just sit there and do a little prayer. Or to
and I've been there several times and just looked out the window and people are parked.
And they come to prayer.
Yeah.
Then I want to go into the new church and explain how we went from the small, which was bigger than the old church, that church, and all the add-ons. There's been four phases of restoration to get us to the point that we are at today, and I'm going to explain how those came about. And get a chance to walk around, see it. There are plaques with names everywhere. And when I went to this church for the first time, I started looking around going, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? So that's when I'm doing the research, and I'm finding out who all these people are. So yeah, we're going to do a little time travel. Going to start it in 1859. We're going to talk about the whole beginning. And
out in the cemetery there with the old church is a lot of significant people that were a part of
the old cemetery.
One of them was Albert Harrison. Him and his wife are buried there. And as a young child growing, I was probably 10, 11, I remember them.
Oh yeah.
And I remember his wife and how good she was. She taught Sunday school, and I know my youngest brother was with her in the Sunday school.
And you know, people don't realize the Harrison family has been a huge, amazing part of this community for over 100 years. Over 100 years, like 120 years.
Right.
And that's huge. That's huge because they they kind of put their money where their mouth was. They love the community, they love giving back, they love doing, and so look at the jobs that they've provided for these over 100 years. It's crazy.
Right.
And often those families are forgotten.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And after the tour, the men's group they're going to have a little lunch. So again, another little $10 donation. You can actually have the tour for the $10, go in, spend another little $10, and have lunch.
There you go.
In the fellowship hall.
What are they going to feed folks?
I think they're doing hot dogs and hamburgers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
hot dogs and hamburgers.
That's a great way. For $20, you can basically spend the afternoon.
You've got
there.
the afternoon, and
now,
you're
what
learning.
time does it start?
It's going to start at 9:30, and we're going to do it as many times as necessary until 4:30.
Okay.
And then I'm going to
And
do it
again, that's May the 10th.
May the 10th.
May the 10th.
Yeah,
The
we
day
have a
before
rain
Mother's
date.
Day.
Yes, we have a rain date of May 24th. I'm hoping it doesn't rain.
Yeah. Yeah, but it would be cool to take your mom there.
Yeah.
Again, you can take your mom for lunch, and then you can take
and there
your
is the
mom.
mobility issue, so you're going to have to deal with that. We're during the practice run, it really kind of hit that there is a lot of walking, but it is a cemetery tour.
Sure.
You go to a cemetery, there's going to be a certain amount of walking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love visiting the old cemeteries and seeing the folks, and if you're ever in Nelson, Georgia, Nelson has so many of the Italian carvers who came to work at Georgia Marble, and you see the monuments. That's amazing. Now, do y'all have any old monuments that are beautiful?
I think they're all beautiful, even though some of them get a little hard to read. Yeah, and I'm walking around and I'm reading them all, and I'm trying to discern what they say. There's some that are obscured, but a lot of them are read.
Some of them are hard to read. Some of them they're old.
Yeah, some of them are very old.
Don't touch them because you never know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I know we had a person go out and try to straighten one up, and it just popped.
Oh, wow.
So the old ones are very fragile.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was one, and I can't remember the name on it, that was very unique. It was that smaller one that had a roll. Almost like a scroll.
There was
like
a period of time when they used the scrolls.
I've not seen that before.
I don't know if that's a little obscure too. Yeah, and a little fun fact, our first pastor was William Ellington, and his son, Louis Duval Ellington, married a woman named Lucinda, which is my name. And as you got this name, you do not run into your name very often. And I was wandering around the cemetery, and I'm looking, and I'm like, my name is on the cemetery. It's like, it's on a headstone. I was like, this does not happen.
That's weird.
This is weird, exactly.
That's
so
weird.
Back in the 1800s, when we were out at the old cemetery, it was probably a log structure or a brush arbor, they called it, or something. And then the Ellingtons deeded the land to us, but the church moved, so it went back to the heirs. But then later down and these were relatives of the Ellington, W.A. Simmons, and they gave the land back to the church.
That's cool. Yeah. Look at the time, ladies. Time's gone.
Uh-oh.
Time's gone. Remember, again, May the 10th, 9:30 a.m., Cartecay Methodist Church, located at the exact address is
7629 Highway 52 East.
There you go.
And if you would like to call and get more information, you can call the church, 706-276-7400, or me, Renee Walker. You can call me at 706-273-8087.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's done. Time to get out of here. See y'all again soon. Don't forget, this goes straight to YouTube. Please share it with your friends, share it with your family. And to Xana, who had about 42,000 people watch her video yesterday, there's something about a sweet baby girl. Evidently, the world loved her. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for keeping up with what's going on in Gilmer County, Georgia. We'll see you again soon.